So the fight for Kherson Oblast continues, but will Russia leave without putting up a fight? Guys, stick around for today's show on Ukraine. Today's date is the 4th of November. And we've got quite a bit of news for you guys. We've got map studies and everything. So stick around to the end of the video to see all of that good stuff. Thanks for being here, guys. As always, like, share, and subscribe. Boom. But let's get straight into this one. Now, thanks to the understandingwar.org Institute Study of War. They've got some good information for us. We're going to be relating this information to the map and then going through various different articles and stuff. But loads to do, troops. Anyway, Russian forces are continuing to withdraw some elements from northwest Kherson Oblast, but it is still unclear if Russian forces will fight for Kherson city. Now, that's crazy to think that, it was one of the first major objectives on the Russian front. If we look at the map here, one of the first major areas that they took over at the beginning of the whole campaign, okay? So this is something that's been significant, and for them to be even talking about, potentially leaving this area without actually putting up a fight, so to speak, it's crazy to say the least. Now, this area is subject to a media blackout, guys, but we're going to get into the positions of these troops on the ground, having a little look closer at the troops on the ground and who they are, what they stand for and everything. But it's interesting, guys, to, we're even in that conversation where they might not even fight for Kherson city. It's bearing in mind how prominent of a strategic value it was in the beginning of the war. Now, Kherson city occupation deputy Kirill Sturmus stated on November the 3rd that Russian forces will most likely leave for the eastern bank of Dnipro River, urging civilians to evacuate from Kherson city. Now, Putin's even stated himself that he's trying to get as many people out there as quickly as possible, leading to the rumor and speculation that weapons of mass destruction are potentially going to be used within that area. We've heard false flag operations being pushed onto Ukraine. Guys, there's loads going about, but one thing's for sure, there's a lot of people getting out of Kherson Oblast, and it's happening quick time. Now, as quickly as possible, that's going to happen. Now, the Institute Study of War has observed that Russian forces are continuing to prepare fallback positions on the left/eastern bank of Dnipro River, while continuing to set up defensive positions northwest of Kherson city and transporting additional mobile forces there. Let's have a look at this then, troops, because, we understand that there's been a media blackout, okay? But the information that the Institute Study of War puts out, although we do get comments on the channel saying, what are you talking about? Well, actually, this the dialogue that's on here is really, really accurate, and I fully trust the Institute Study of War to put the correct information out there. And one way of cross-referencing that is just by looking at the map from what they're saying there. So they believe that Russian forces are putting up defensive positions in certain areas of Kherson city. Let's have a look to see if that is actually the case. Deep state map, boom. Okay, so straight away we zoomed in to the oblast. Obviously, we haven't seen any traction or movement within this area with regards, the area's changing from red occupied to blue under Ukraine control. But one thing's for sure that is clear is that these positions, let me take that pen off. These positions are significant because they're changing on a day-to-day basis, all right? Here we've got almost a defensive line there. Let me draw in this formation there. Obviously, you've got a bit of a reserve capability across the river there, but that's the main formations that we're looking at. And then the same in the northeast area. We've got these troops on the ground. So, who's there in these defensive positions? We've got the 247th Guard Air Assault Regiment. What are they about? Because it's all right looking at these individuals. We need to look at the type of people that Russia is actually putting on the ground in these areas. My understanding, and I'm going to be generalizing this a lot, all right? I've worked with the Parachute Regiment in the United Kingdom, for instance. A very, very elite regiment, okay? On par, if not better in many ways, at the same level, should I say, as the Royal Marines, all right? There's the Royal Marines and the Parachute Regiment in the United Kingdom, who are the guys just below Special Forces, all right? And in their own right, extremely special at what they do. So when I've went across the globe, worked with various different outfits, it doesn't matter if it's in France or the USA. Normally speaking, similar units have that similar type of, the similar type of legendary capabilities that we have as well. They're also held to a high standard, and people look at them as being legendary. Do you know what I'm saying? So I'm trying to think, are these guys going to be held in the same account? Are they going to be as elite for Russia, for instance, as, you know, the parachute regiment is for us in Great Britain? Let's have a little bit of look at what they look like for a start. 108th Guards Air Assault Regiment. So there's plenty of pictures out here, but, you know, we have to look at these things and see what they actually look like. And as you can see, picture on the right there, yeah, the guys look as you would expect airborne infanteers to look like. Maybe he's not as professional looking as, for instance, the parachute regiment or the airborne guys in the United States, but nonetheless, this 108th Guards, you know, they look like they're semi decent, but there again, this picture on the right, they look quite young and naive to a degree. That's what you get in the military anyway, generally speaking. 7th Guards Mountain Air Assault Division. To jump out of a perfectly normal plane, you've got to be a different kettle of fish anyway. You've got to be quite a brave individual. So just off these pictures, and I am being mega judgmental, they look, you know, yeah, young. They've got decent-ish kit. They look like they're pretty formed, disciplined. All airborne units have to be disciplined due to the nature of their job. And not to be too judgmental again, but yeah, these guys look all right. Plus, you know, we can have a quick Google at some of the units around the world in certain countries and instantly judge how horrendous they may be just off how they look. These guys, they look all right, okay? So what am I trying to get at here with the fact that these guys look okay? Well, it would make sense that these defensive positions, if they are going to prepare for a bit of a fight with the ongoing advancement of this front line, although we're not seeing anything in the way of this map changing due to the media blackout, we have reasons to believe that this defensive line is obviously going to eventually get pushed closer to Kherson City, okay? So you'd want your best troops to be there. We've got the 107th, 247th, the 108th, the 255, and the 33rd Guard Motorized Rifle Regiment. So we've got 2 regiments of infanteers and 2 of airborne units, okay, air assaults. So yeah, they're putting what seems to be some decent caliber guys there. Depending on how many troops they've lost during the war and how many youngsters have come through the training programs and put on the front lines there, obviously depends on how professional they're going to be and how effective they're going to be on the ground, guys. But, you know, I'm led to believe that they're going to have pretty solid guys on the front line there protecting Kherson City, which tells me that, you know, although they're saying they're going to leave Kherson without a fight, so to speak, whilst this evacuation process is taking place, I don't think that's going to be the case. I think that's a bit of almost a false flag of information coming out just so it puts Ukraine into a false sense of, you know, this is going to be an easy ride, so to speak, in Kherson City. But I don't think it is going to be as easy as that for them guys, all right? No form of war fighting is, especially when you're fighting in built-up areas such as Kherson City, guys, all right? But back on to that. Now, despite Streminus has stated some Russian elite units, such as airborne forces, we've just went over that, and naval infantry are reportedly continuing to operate on the right western bank of Dnipro River, which is what we've just said. We've located those troops. I didn't realize that some of those troops are actually specialist. Where did it say there? So airborne and naval infantry. So we're talking a similar concept as Great Britain and America. You know, you've got your naval and your airborne, you've got the paratroopers and the Marines. So they're putting them guys there. This is the equivalent that I'm trying to assume that's happening there. And their full withdrawal from northern Kherson Oblast would be a clearer indication that Russian forces will not fight for Kherson City or settlements on the right bank. Streminus also hypothesized about the probability of fighting in Kherson City and northern Kherson Oblast in the next few weeks. So, you know, they're saying one thing and meaning another. Troops, let's put it this way, they're saying that they're going to have a full withdrawal and not fight not fight for Kherson City. Why would you then? Why would you put your, you know, some of your best troops or better troops, you know, your naval infantries, marine type guys and your airborne guys, why would you put them, you know, closer to that Kherson city centre? I don't think there's any other reason other than, you know, you are prepared to fight. You're wanting to evacuate accordingly, but you're leaving some pretty good guys behind to, you know, hinder that front line. Maybe what I think is going to happen, you look at this front line here, okay? Roughly speaking, we've got, and this is very rough, in terms of front line north of the Dnipro River, we've got about 155 kilometers. So maybe what they're trying to do is just allow this whole consolidation effect to take place, let the front line push on close around where their defensive positions are and have a more consolidated front line to fight from, because effectively what you've left with is a smaller area to focus on. So in actual fact, we can have this whole area evacuated, the front line closes right in, Ukraine uses and allocates all of their troops to push for Kherson, believing that it's going to be an easy fight because everyone's withdrawn. But meanwhile, you've got heavily fortified defensive positions with good guys in defensive positions ready to fight on a smaller condensed front line. You know, Russia has their missile systems and Ukraine has their artillery systems that are quite effective, but you know, you're going to struggle to allocate and put them on target when that front line's being consolidated. So that's what could happen. You know, I've been right a lot of the time on the channel. I don't profess to be right all of the time, but that's my thoughts that could happen. But not for one second do I think that Kherson city will be taken without a fight, because I think it's going to be, you know, I think we're going to see a lot of fighting there potentially. But you know, who am I, guys? I'm just basing this off my limited experience as a former commando in the Royal Marines, you know, nothing else. But getting back to the map, that's potentially what I think could happen, troops. Boom. Let's get on to this campaign assessment then. So yeah, that may suggest that he anticipates some battles for Kherson City, despite his comments about withdrawal. Stremonos is also an unreliable source who has consistently issued contradictory statements and made emotional responses to events, and his public statements may be clouded by personal fears of losing his position within occupied government. We see that a hell of a lot in any government of any land. Decision making to appease and please the individuals higher than them so they keep their salaries, okay? This could be one of those things. But in terms of contradictions there, we've seen contradictions in this very statement of what he's been saying. We're going to withdraw troops, we're not going to fight for the city, but then you're putting defensive positions up with organised, more elite units into the areas, you know, kind of giving the impression that you are prepared to fight in a consolidated, confined area of Kherson region, mainly the city. So make of that as you wish, troops. Now, Ukrainian and Russian sources also extensively discussed the reported closure of some Russian checkpoints in the vicinity of Kherson city, the theft of city's monuments, and the removal of a Russian flag from the Oblast administration buildings as indicators of an ongoing Russian withdrawal from the city. A Russian outlet claimed that Russian officials moved the flag because the occupation administration moved to Henikchesk by the Crimea border, while the relocation of Kherson Oblast occupation government may suggest that Russian forces are preparing to abandon Kherson city. It may equally indicate that they are setting conditions for urban combat within the city. That's what I think is going to happen, guys. We've just said it. Similar reports may arise in coming days, giving the ongoing forced evacuation of civilians from both right and left banks of the Dnipro River, but may not indicate an immediate withdrawal of Russian forces from Kherson city. The disposition of Russian airborne forces remains the best indicator of Russian intentions. I couldn't have said it better myself. Russian intentions, you've got airborne elites on the ground, defensive positions, a defensive line close to that Oblast city centre. I think that, yeah, they're preparing to fight. They're going to evacuate most of the people. They're going to consolidate the war effort, and they're going to fight it out for the city. That's what I think, guys. So, with that being said, where are we getting a lot of our information from alternate sources? I have a Telegram group now. If you want to join, the link is in the description. It's free to join, guys. This is the place where you can conversate with me. We've got a chat in there, a private chat for those members, and, you know, loads of information coming in. We've got a feed reader bot sending us all of this information on an hourly basis sometimes, and we've also got the private chat where all of the group members who are on there have the option to be able to send us information and talk to me. I was on there for a few hours last night speaking to the great guys and girls that are on that group, so please consider joining us on Telegram. All right, guys. But a few of the sources that I want to go over from that Telegram group are this one here that I've seen pop up. Putin says civilians must be evacuated from Kherson war zone video. Let's have a look at this then. This video released by the Russian Defense Ministry shows Kherson residents crossing the Dnipro River as Vladimir Putin said civilians must be evacuated because of the most dangerous actions. As Ukraine forces close in on the key city, Russia has moved into reinforcements and dug in positions, symbolic of a potential fight. Kiev's forces have liberated a large area of the oblast, but progress has slowed in recent weeks as they have approached the Dnipro River. Let's have a look at this.
Сейчас, конечно, тех, кто проживает в Херсоне, нужно убрать из зоны и более опасных действий боевых, потому что гражданское население не должно страдать от обстрелов, от каких-то...
What's outrageous is that he's showing a level of compassion in this video. We're going to get to the rest of it, but I had to stop it there. He's shown a level of compassion for civilian population. We know throughout the, not just the history of Russian operations, but also the history of this war since February, that they haven't shown the same regard. He certainly hasn't shown the same regard throughout the rest of Russia. Make of that as you wish, but has that got anything to do with the Russian having a lot more Russian population living within that region and southern point of that region? I just think it's a massive hypocritical statement from this guy in particular. Make of that as you wish, guys.
Наступательных, контрнаступательных и прочих мероприятий, связанных с военными действиями.
Пытаемся привить им правильные ценности. Вот.
Okay, so that's that on that little bit. I want to get into one other thing on the channel before we go, guys. This is it. Russian forces prematurely impaled an insufficient concentration of mobilized personnel on the offensive pushes near Bakhmut and Volodya Donetsk Oblast, wasting the fresh supply of mobilized personnel on marginal gains towards operationally insignificant settlements. We've seen this time and time and time again in Donetsk, all right? We've seen these major pushes that Russia has been trying to achieve, and they just haven't been that effective. We can rewind back to the beginning of this month and see that there hasn't been too much progress in Donetsk. All right, look, I'm all the way back to the 1st of the 10th here, and not that much, but a lot of the operational gains that they've been trying to receive have been through the mobilized forces in Ukraine. All right, they're putting a lot of their, time and effort into this area for, the only thing that's happened is collateral damage and a lot of loss of life. It doesn't make any sense why they've been utilizing these forces in this region when they could have been utilizing those forces in the east, West Luhansk area. So I'm not too sure why they're still putting and prioritizing this area in particular. It doesn't make any sense to me, but it just shows the lack of intellect and tactical awareness for such high command structures to be able to focus their efforts in this region when it makes no logical sense. Ukrainian General Staff Deputy Chief Oleksiy Hromov stated on November 3rd that one of the two Russian motorized rifle companies with artillery and tank support conducted ground attacks within the past week to seize Pavlivka and in an effort to reach Volodya. But the Russian forces have suffered losses due to Ukrainian defensive. The Ukrainian defenses has won this war and many little gains in the settlements time and time and time again. All right, they've been utilizing what they have, utilizing it very well. Thinking tactically, always thinking about the next few steps ahead, digging in where appropriate, and then capitalizing on small gains effectively, utilizing their operational structure to their best advantage. And we've seen that's why Ukraine has been very, very effective, especially in the first counteroffensive in the east area. That major counteroffensive, they took what they could and they capitalized on it. It's a game of chess, is war, and they were playing the game very, very well in comparison to Russia's terrible operationally, they haven't been great, guys. All right, they've used too much bulk and brawn, but it's like the boxing match scenario. You can be the biggest, strongest guy out there. You're fighting Alexander Usyk. You've got to come with more than just brawn and bulk and muscles like Anthony Joshua. You've got to have that skill. You've got to play the game like chess. All right, you've got to use your brain for this, and I believe Ukraine has just been the better chess player. Now, Russian sources also acknowledged on November 3rd that the rate of Russian advances near Volodar is slow due to Ukrainian resistance and mud. So we're talking about mud. Now we're actually seeing the effects of the weather in these areas. A lot of people are saying that, the weather isn't affecting these guys that much and stuff like that. It's easy for us to say that, guys. We're not fighting on the front lines over there. When it gets cold, it gets a little bit rainy and the mud comes up and you've got to fight for your life, bounding across, fields and stuff and in and out of bun lines and woods and stuff. It's really, really difficult. Even if you're just playing and reenacting these things in an operationally training environment, it's really difficult. I know that. I've been there and done it. So we can't judge what we think they might be going through or what they might not be going through. We aren't going through that, okay? So if they're saying that the weather is playing a little bit of effect on that, I definitely believe them. This time of year, although Ukraine is better suited to winter for many reasons, not only are they hardened because they experience their own weather systems, they live there, they're better kitted out from the United States, UK, France and Germany and all the other supporting countries. They've got good kit to be able to do that, and Russia effectively hasn't. But we have to understand that the weather does play a vital part in these wars, guys, and it does slow and hinder movement down slightly, depending on how severe or extreme the weather systems can be, okay? But we need to consider that always. Kromov stated that Russian forces continue ground attacks at the expense of mobilized personnel, private military company forces and former prisoners, and that the Russians conducted over 40 ground attacks in Bakhmut, Avitka and Westernetsk Oblast areas in the past 24 hours, sustaining over 300 casualties. Over 100 were killed in just one direction. ISW has previously reported on the slow Russian rate of advance in Donetsk Oblast and injudicious allocations of resources on the front lines. Russian forces would likely have had more success in such offensive operations if they had waited until enough mobilized personnel had arrived to amass a force large enough to overcome Ukrainian defenses despite poor weather conditions. Russian attacks continuing current patterns are unlikely to generate enough momentum to regain the battlefield initiative. So, battlefield initiative in this area, I don't think they have it at all now. All right, it's evident just by how little they have taken within this area. It's just stayed stagnant. But what hasn't stayed stagnant, guys, is the amount of guys that they're pushing to this front line. They're pushing guys to this front line in drips and drabs. They haven't really got a thorough plan of attack to be able to advance. And if they did, where are they going to be advancing to? Look at the size of this area in which they're trying to capitalize on. This is a massive front line, okay? They can't focus their efforts on any one of these areas because they might risk losing other areas. So that's really, really hard to hold and defend. When we look at the actual size of this front line, roughly speaking, it's 143 kilometers. It's massive in terms of area. So unless they had, a lot of mobilized individuals to this area to be able to support their efforts there, which they haven't, you're not going to gain any traction there. And holding out also means that you're going to be losing men every single day, which they have. They suffer huge losses on a day-to-day basis all the way along this front line. And also having to focus on these two separate counteroffensives, which is happening, struggling. So what I think is going to happen, it's just actually dawned on me, you've got a counteroffensive happening here, West Luhansk. You've got a counteroffensive happening in Kherson. What that's going to do is take troops from Russia, from these built-up areas, which are already struggling for manpower. It's going to be refocusing some of the manpower into other areas along this front line, weakening further this main effort here for Donetsk. So I think it's a very good tactic what Ukraine is utilising. Whether they're, doing that on purpose or not, I have reason to believe that they probably are to weaken this front line. So once, we see massive traction in Kherson and West Luhansk, we could possibly see the third stage, possibly the final stage, happening movement in Donetsk, following all the way through to Mariupol, which we've seen is, currently under terrible military control at this moment in time. We are seeing within Mariupol over the past few days and weeks, soldiers going around and pretty much, checking people's phones for, Ukraine propaganda material and stuff like that. It's a terrible time to be living in certain areas of Ukraine, guys. I really do feel for the individuals who are living there. But that is 25 minutes of me talking. If you enjoy this type of content, troops, please smash the like button. Please join our Telegram group. You can, interact with me and everyone else in there. It's a fantastic group. I'm really happy that we did it. If you want to support me further, please consider joining the Patreon. I really do need all of the support, helping me, put these videos out and stuff all day. This is my job full time, so anyone who would help me out in that way, I would be really appreciative, guys. Okay, so if you want to support, please do. Okay, it's really welcome, put it that way. But yeah, troops, thank you for watching. Like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Please share it with your friends far and wide, and I'll see you in the next one, troops. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for stopping by.